Live.
What's going on? You hear me all right?
My man Juan, what's going on,
Yo,
brother?
how's it going?
All right.
How's it going?
Going all right, man. I mean, we kind of been having these little issues sometimes, man. It's different phones, got different type of instructions and whatever to get in. But they're happy to have you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say welcome to the Whistle Podcast, Coach JB, and Coach Brett with my man Kevin. They'll be popping in a little bit. They're just getting off of work, doing what they need to do. We gonna keep it moving. So, Mr. Bernal, hey man, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we just flow. You know, go from there.
Got you. I'm Juan Bernal. I am now a FIBA basketball agent overseas. So I represent players overseas. I used to be um, I used to be in the basketball scene, like on an amateur level. Um, and now I finally decided to become an agent after all these years.
Okay. What's the process? Probably actually I want to be I'm an aspiring person that want to be an agent myself. But, me knowing people about me being over there and things like that. I mean, people always come up to asking me because I've been over, but at the same time, like we discussed earlier, it's not that easy.
Right. Yeah. There's never a dull day in this business. You always learn something new, and there's a lot of different there's a lot of different intricacies when it comes to dealing with players and teams and cultures and countries, and you just need to make sure that you have a well-rounded understanding of what is going on, and familiarize yourself with different situations, and really just understand things outside of basketball. Because I always tell players, like, 90% of playing basketball overseas is it's psychological, and that that entails everything that does has nothing to do with basketball. Can you learn the language? Can you handle being away from an environment that you're familiar with? Can you assimilate to not being home for the holidays? Can you assimilate, especially now? Uh, can you get accustomed to realities that are not very comfortable? The reality is, uh, if you're starting out as a player overseas, you're probably not going to be making as much money as you thought you were. There's guys that are playing for $500 a month. There's guys that are playing for uh, you know damn near $1 million a month. So it just comes down to, can you assimilate to those realities, and really, like, how bad do you want to do this? Like, now there's some people that say, hey, I just wanted to do it just to do it. But there's also guys who, if they don't do this, like, they don't know any other way of life. And I'm sure you've seen guys who just, they they struggle, like, when their playing careers are over. They struggle to kind of figure out what's next. And for some of these guys, or for a lot of these guys, like, they're never going to make it to play in the NBA. Like, that's just the unfortunate reality of playing basketball. Like, there's, how many basketball players have you seen throughout your existence, and how many guys do we know we can count probably on two hands, barely, that were fortunate enough to play in the NBA. Here you've got Amare Stoudemire, Austin Rivers, Darius Washington, um, Grant Riller, and those are guys. Those are just some of the guys that had. Paul Reed's another guy. Those are just some of the guys that were fortunate enough to have multi-year careers. Like, there's guys that who unfortunately get a short sniff of it, and then it's over. So, um, you just have to be prepared for those realities, and understand, like, the overseas grind isn't for everybody. So,
Yeah. So yeah, you uh, just said a name that's familiar. What happened to Grant Riller? What happened to Grant Riller?
so Grant right now, he was so Grant was in I know he was in Philadelphia, or sorry, in Charlotte's G League, and I honestly couldn't tell you where he is, or what he's doing right now. I know, like, I saw him at a run a couple months back, and he was he looked pretty good, and you could tell, it's like, Jesus, like, this guy, he's got a shot. And then you realize, oh, it's Grant Riller. And yeah, I can't say exactly what he's doing, but I'm sure he's probably at the point, uh, where he has to decide, like, does he want to keep chasing the NBA, or does he want to try to or does he just want to start making money? Because there's a lot of money to be made for a guy like that overseas.
Right, right. Yeah, I get a lot of questions because about being over there and everything, and everybody feel like when you go overseas, they think it's just one country or a certain country that you can go to. There's many countries that you can go to, but at the same time, you definitely want to go somewhere. You don't really want to go to a war torn country. Um, you really don't want to do that. So could you just put it out there with like what countries would be best for you if you can choose?
Well, that's I don't know that that's a fair question for me to answer, because it's there's basketball leagues in damn near every country, and you just have to be able to be a good fit for where you're going to go. So, like, for example, there's guys who would excel very well out in the Middle East, but couldn't, but couldn't get off the bench in Latin America, or couldn't get off the bench in Europe, for example. Like, it's every place, and really it's continental, has a very distinct style of play. And as an agent, I'm very cognizant of telling guys, like, listen, you'll fit well in these markets, or you won't fit well in this other market, or I don't think you could do well here because of this, just the situation, and as it comes to that country. So again, goes more a lot of this goes more in depth than just the basketball. Again, for example, there's guys who can play can play at a certain country in Europe for 10 or 15 years, and you come back and watch them in a pro-am or something, and they don't look that great. But you have to understand that the style of basketball that they play where they're at is very distinctive, and it differs a lot. Like, the stuff you see here, like when you see guys come back home, like if you go to an open run or whatever at the Smith Center or wherever it may be, a lot of that resembles the Latin American style of basketball. And that's more open, more free flowing. um it's the get a bucket mentality, like I like to say. Um, Whereas in Europe, it's a lot more structured. You're dealing with a coach who wants you to pass 5 times and go to this spot, and it's very structured. And there's players that can handle that. There's players that can't, and there's players that, as they get on early on in their career, and this is the mistake that some guys make, is they go to Europe for 2 or 3 years, and then they realize it's like, I really don't want to practice 2 times a day for 7 months. And they're like, well, if I don't want to do that, I guess it's like, unless I go to the NBA or to the G League, like, my career's over. No, there's other places you can go to. There's the Middle East, there's South America, but it's all about whether your game is tailored to that style of basketball or not.
Yeah, because people are asking me like they like the style of play over there, the way of life, stuff like that. So it just comes down to the whatever country you go to, and it's definitely easier to go to a country that also speak English. But sometimes you may not look up and get that. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah, the late great Brandon Hunter, he gave, I'll never forget this. Like, this was just days before he passed away. I was doing, he was a guy that I sought for, for some guidance, and he's ultimately the reason why I decided to get into this. Um, he's a guy who told me that you don't want to get lazy, and you want to learn the cultures and the language of every of everywhere that you go. Um, and otherwise, like, they're just gonna see that you're lazy and you don't really want to put the work in to try to to try to get better and to learn life experiences. So that's another part of what of what that is all about as well, is you want to better yourself as a person. So it's important to learn those and to experience those different cultures and things.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask this question. I'm getting ready to ask you, right? I know you know, and I definitely know, but the viewers, the ones that's out here right now, that's watching this or will be watching this later at some point, they ask me this all the time. Like, what's the difference between somebody coming off the street, basically coming off the street, which is me. So that's why I get these questions. Because when I say coming off the street, I went through uh but that it was a uh I went through a league which was they took over from that. Uh, got the name of the league, but I wound up having a bunch of tryouts. I put it like that.
Hmm.
I had a bunch of tryouts, and but me myself, I wound up going as a package deal. So really, when you go in a package deal, especially with basketball, the team really don't want you. They want the person that you're coming with. So I had to actually make that team because they really didn't want me there. So it was a situation me sitting there in England, and I used to be sitting in this. They had me sitting in this place, man. It was crazy, like YMCA. It was like a YMCA. They had me standing in a YMCA, man. Right, and they had. I don't know if you remember a player called Cephas Benton or Cephas Bunton. He played for West Kentucky
Hmm.
back when actually he known for blocking Anthony Hardaway's dunk at the arena during the March Madness. But anyway, he was a very good player. But he was, we was at actually we were playing for Palm. He was playing for Palm Beach Sundog in the USBL down in Palm Beach, and that's what his first team I tried out for. And actually, I made the second cut. And Roger Bell was there, a couple of guys that I seen actually on TV, NCAA guys and stuff like that. So, I did very well for myself. But what happened was because I didn't have that college background, because I didn't play in college, right? I made my name in the league.
Hello, que papacito.
I made my name in the league over in Orlando. The pro am for 3 years, and I got my name
Como
out there.
77?
I've always been a guy in Orlando. Was one of the guys that was good in Orlando. But like I said, it's a lot of people that come up and ask me that, and I say sometimes it be kind of hard to really explain it. But like, what's the difference between somebody going through those leagues, basically coming from the bottom, versus obviously coming through college, and you did 4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I would say, there's so much of this, like, and unfortunately, this is the part of it that's not really fair. Is is when teams look at you, right? Um, as an agent, I could put I could give you Michael Jordan's film, right? Like, literally, I can give you Michael's film, and it's not going to matter if they look at his resume and see that he didn't play anywhere. I cannot tell you how many negotiations that I have daily that run into, that turn into, it's like, well, we like his film, but unfortunately, he averaged 1.6 points a game in college. And teams get so hung up on that because, again, you people have to understand that that the people on the other side of the fence that are making these decisions, these executives for these teams, they aren't necessarily basketball people. Like they're trained to look at a series of things, and that includes numbers, right? So I've had situations where, listen, I've had guys who, again, they can play, but the issue that they run into is they averaged 2.3 points a game in their last stop,
Wow.
right? And and uh, and I've sent them their film. I've even had, so like, for example, like I don't want to get too specific, but I've had a situation where a national team coach, okay, I had him call a team on behalf of a player. And this particular coach won 4 league titles, four, with that same team in 6 years. Okay, you would think it's like, if that coach says, hey, listen, this guy can play, they're going to take his word over anybody else. But what ends up happening is, they're like, well, we liked everything about him. Like, coach said he was really good, but he averaged 2.3 points a game at his last stop. We need somebody that had better numbers. So this is just one of those things where like, where the eye test, the eye test is just a part of it. Like, there's so much that goes into that piece of paper, that or to what's on a piece of paper, like, and unfortunately, like, it's just the way it works, and it's a flawed situation at many levels. But it's like, people like to say, it's the politics of it. And unfortunately, like, there's not a lot that people could do to change it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like what you were talking about, it's definitely going to trigger up any thoughts that people have, the misconceptions that they have about overseas. 'Cause people think it's just really easy, and it's not.
No, no, and again, like, there's different circumstances when it comes to distinct players. Like, there's always context to why guys average what they average. And again, you can average 2 points a game, and there could be a whole litany of issues behind that. Like, you could have had a coach who just didn't like you, and you didn't get along with the coach. Like, how many players do you know, or do we both know, who, when they come back from overseas and their careers are seemingly over, their first thing that they said, oh, it was the coach. He didn't play me, and I like I couldn't get off the bench, and that's why my career's over, because no team wanted to sign me because I averaged 6 points a game because this coach was an asshole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's part of it. The other thing is, some of these, and again, I'm not gonna speak poorly on other agents, because I by no means have a perfect track record myself. But agents could put you in a situation to where it doesn't necessarily benefit the player, and they end up getting cut, and that looks poorly on them. um and it
yeah,
and it could be a situation where it wasn't the player's fault. Like, the player didn't get along with the coach, or he had something happen that was out of his control, and things like that just unfortunately happen. So just like in the NBA, it's a dog eat dog world. It's a very very tough business to have some longevity in. So
So, what's the pay scale? How that work? How they get paid? Was what they get every month or every week?
well,
I
that ultimately all depends on what's in the contract. So you know players can expect to get paid once a month, or sorry, twice a month. So in some countries it's one, like some countries it's the 15th and the 30th. Other countries it's the 15th or the 30th. In a lot of Latin American places, which is what I deal with, it's weekly. Um, and another thing is too, like, you just have to be very careful with payments and do your research carefully, because these these teams are you know are, ultimately they can do what they want when it comes to paying and not paying. So you try to do your research diligently and not put players in a situation where they're not going to get paid, or they could have an issue getting paid. And again, no agent has 100% track record in terms of recovering money for his guys. Like, I do not, and I'll tell you the one instance that I don't um, is uh, is there was a team in Mexico who, after cutting the player, or after deciding to part ways with the player, they were supposed to pay him a certain amount, and they paid him another amount because that's just what they felt like paying him. And as an agent now in some markets, I try to negotiate part of salaries up front, so that these incidents don't happen. Because again, I know that if a player misbehaves, or the coach doesn't like him, or the team feels like he's not performing up to par, like, that's how they decide to punish him. And ultimately, you can get recourse through and through, like, arbitration, but that's a process that no one wants to go through. Like, it's like paying a legal situation where, if you don't win the case, like, you're ultimately out a good amount of money, and it just costs a lot more time and resources that it could be worth, like, for the average player. So, like, in these situations, we're talking about like $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, and it's really just not worth going to FIBA and dealing with that for that amount of money, because you have to pay that much just to get it to arbitration. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. That's like I said, that's definitely a pain. Definitely. I had to kind of go through that for a little bit. I had a guy that was like that year. Actually, I had to negotiate my own contract. That was the first job, So I already know, like, that I was already being explained, what I need to do and how to go about it. So uh, that was my baptism. So when I got to that other team, the next team, then I knew what to do.
Yeah, and ultimately too, though, like, players put themselves in situations where, like, they think that everything is gonna be okay. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I was talking to a player yesterday, and I had gone out of my like, literally, I had gone out of my way to negotiate an advance for this player, okay, upon his arrival. So I proceed to ask the player in our, in our weekly conversation, because with with the guys that I have signed, like some of them I have daily conversations with, others I have weekly. It just depends on the, on the maintenance that they need. But in this weekly conversation, I said, "Hey, is everything good, like from a business standpoint?" And they're like, "Yeah, I only got paid half the money." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, you know why? It's because you got an advance." And they're like, and he's like, "Well, he never gave me or they never gave me the advance." And I'm just like, "Well, why wasn't that told to me sooner? Because I like, I would have told them they needed to give you the advance. Like the last we talked about it, you said that they offered it to you, but you said that you were going to take it like within like once you got your account or something, because in those in a lot of these places you have to have bank accounts. Okay. And I'm like, okay, just make sure they get it to you. So now it's like, players also, like, they can be their own worst enemies sometimes, because I tell them they need to document every single dollar that they got paid, whether it's meal money or whether it's compensation, because you can't be in a situation to where it's you versus the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And and like from my standpoint, like I always like to say, like if there's an issue with a team, I want to be clear and concise as to what's owed and when it's owed and all that different sort of stuff.
yeah. I mean, it was crazy because actually my team, everything was smooth. We sat down when they actually decided that they wanted me, but they wanted to sign me. Everything right. I was first in practice, last to leave in practice, uh, first or second in the drill. Or and when we get to doing our practice for is going up and down. I did my thing. We ran the play. I did everything right. And everybody that they brought position, I'm like, hey, you know, this what I've been waiting on all my life. You know what I'm saying? And whoever come up in here, man, and, this is my job. So guys got to understand when they go over there, you got to go over there with the mentality that, hey, it's almost like this your last time eating. You know what I mean? You feel me?
Yeah.
So it's like, and then I signed my contract. We negotiated the contract. Went back and forth on the little dollars, little change or whatever. Soon as I signed, they gave me a checkbook. They gave me, the copy of the contract and everything. Gave me a nicer place to stay. So I had a car. You know, I was able to get around the city because we wasn't, it was like I said, it's American. It was American. It was English talking people around, so that made it easier. And then when things got sour or whatever, I was kind of like the sacrificial lamb because my position was at a non-work permit player, so I had to get married. You know what I mean? So usually, you got the three guys or the two Americans. They obviously they're gonna get paid the most money and they're gonna get the most shot. So when you come in as a non-work permit player, you pretty much got to find you got to get in when you get in when it comes to that basketball. When it's gonna come to you, how it's gonna come to you, whatever. So I wasn't really tripping about it because I understood. I mean, I came in the game, playing where I was pretty much that guy, but I always understood not being the guy because at one point I wasn't the guy. You see what I'm saying? So you can't have an ego with this stuff. So as things went down, I wound up getting cut from the team. But what saved me, I got picked up by another team because I did well against them, and they picked me up. But the thing was, they said to me, they said, "Hey man, we don't really have any money right now because at the end, it was like the last maybe 2 months of the season. So everybody then made their little trades. You got people cutting people, bringing people in, stuff like that. So I wound up I just wanted the opportunity to get back in to like redeem myself. Now, some people will be like, man, you ain't got no money, I ain't playing. So I tell guys, I say, man, don't turn down no job, especially when you over there, you know. So I would like you to like explain that type of mentality. If you had people that some things happened to them while they was over there, and they basically said, well, I'm not going to accept this money. Now I can understand if you've been getting a certain amount of money and stuff like that, and you didn't build your reputation and your resume. But what about the people when they first trying to get in, and then they just start, not accepting jobs because the money was they don't think the money was right.
Well, unfortunately, we live in an era where there's a lot of there's a lot of misperception on what the market actually is for on what the market actually is for overseas players. So, for example, like there's first of all, I'll just give you a quick rule of thumb. The last person you want to ask for a salary of an overseas player is that particular player, because they're going to tell you that they're getting more money than what they're actually getting.
I get, yep, you're right.
So, and then there's two things that have messed up the overseas market, just like absolutely depleted it. Is number one, it's inflation. Okay, because here things just keep going up and up and up, and in the rest of the world, or in most of the rest of the world, inflation is not um, is not as rampant as it is here. And then the other thing is the NIL market. So, for example, like if you're a mid to high major player now, you're taking a major pay cut more than likely in your first overseas job.
Mm.
And that's just the reality of it, because now, like, with NIL stuff, like guys are getting like 40, 50, 60, $70,000 a year, and that's like on the low end. And this is in writing, or sorry, not in writing, but in principle. Like, I'm sure you saw what happened. Like, not to get too off the topic, but I'm sure you saw what happened at UNLV today, where the quarterback saying, "Oh, well, I was promised 100,000 and I only got 3,000,"
Right.
and all this other stuff. Like, that's the kind of stuff that is just killing the market, because now, like, for for mid-level college players, they'll make more money in college than they ever will as a professional. And that's just the reality. So when they get to these jobs that are average like two, three, $4,000 a month, and they look at it and it's like, well, I made more money than that in college. Like, is this what being a pro is? And it's like, well, no, that's what it's always been. It's just a matter of now, like, this whole NIL thing has really just depleted the market, and depleted the overseas market. And some of it is for stuff that doesn't even exist. Like, you hear these reported dealings of guys in college getting these big sums of money, and most of the time it doesn't even happen, because there's no contracts, there's no rules when it comes to the NIL stuff, which is why I don't even deal with it.
I was getting ready to ask you about the NIL, how it's affecting people. Is really people getting that money like they saying? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna say this about NIL. Like, if you're going to pay and get away from amateurism, that's totally fine. But let's enforce rules, and let's have legally binding contracts, and let's conduct business professionally when it comes to this stuff. Like, these players want to be told, yeah, we'll give you $200,000 to come here, and then when they don't get it, when they don't get it, they want to enforce it and act some type of way and get it to court. Well, guess what? Like, that's not something you can really take into court because there's nothing in writing. There's nothing in writing. Like, at least everything that I do when it comes to the overseas market is it's in writing. There's a recourse to get that money. But now, you have the wild, wild west out here in this, in this NIL market, and there's literally no rules. Like, anybody can negotiate an NIL deal and say they're an agent, but they don't want to do the work that us agents actually have to do to to take care of the players and to collect that money and to negotiate in good faith. Like, everybody just wants this quick money, and they everybody just wants to get paid, which, again, it's fine, but if we're going to do it that way, let's conduct, if we're going to treat these players like professionals, let's conduct business as professionals. And that comes from the institutional side. It also comes from the from the player side. And
Yep.
again, if you want to be treated as as a professional, you have to do everything that it takes to come with it. Like, you're essentially an employee of the institution if you're getting paid. So if the Florida Gators want to take you off scholarship and kick you off the team 1 week because you scored 3 points in a game, well, that's what comes with it. That's what happens in the pros. That's what happens in the pros, right? And that's what that's what we want to turn college athletics into. It's they want to turn it into professional college athletics, and I think it's all this NIL stuff. Like, there has to be some sort of regulation toward it. Otherwise, you're just going to see this stuff that turns in to the wild, wild west, and right now it's just totally out of control in more ways than one.
Well, the way you explaining it, and I kind of thought this in a way, because the NCAA for years, for decades, always had to kind of like, I ain't gonna say kind of like, always had to come and face this question, like, because a lot of the money was going under the table, you know what I mean? And then they getting suspended, and getting your Heisman taken away. You basically getting years taken away that you really hard. You was on that field, you was on that basketball court. That has nothing to do with anything off the court. But what you do off the court was affecting what you do on court. Um, I feel like it's like a banana in the tailpipe. You know what I mean? Especially when you just said that like some of those people are not being contracted to get that money. And then you got the ones, like you say, you got the higher guys, like, let's say, uh case in point, as example, the guy from Colorado, Travis Hunter, he just signed a big deal. So I know that got to be contract, the signing the contract, because you're being branded. But then you got these other guys that's coming in for, like you say, the 200, the 300,000. But you would think that they're signing their stuff, but then just like you just put the light on that it might not be the case.
Yeah, well, again, you saw what happened at UNLV today, where the quarterback and the running back. I mean, there's a whole bunch of he said, she said, and I'm not going to speculate on what actually happened, but it was a business decision by both of them to not continue playing, and I think that from a collegiate athletic standpoint, it sets a horrible precedent, a horrible precedent, a horrible precedent. Because, again, it's one thing if you're a professional and you agree to be compensated a certain amount of money and you don't receive said compensation. Well, then it's your prerogative as to what happens or doesn't happen, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
But in college, we have made this, or sorry, not we, but the NIL has made this so much about the bottom line is they're losing sight of what the big picture is. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today had I not gone to college, and it has nothing to do with money. Like, not one iota of it has to do with a dollar I made or didn't make. Okay, and we have guys going to 3 schools in 3 years or 4 schools in 4 years, and they're essentially mercenaries
Agent,
because they're losing sight of the big picture.
right.
Yeah.
What I want to add to that is that you have guys. Um, not everybody's going to get paid the same, but because the money is coming out like it is, people getting a misconception, the thought process that I can get the same money these guys getting because if you look at what happened in the Florida State right now, those guys are fighting over money. You know, them guys fighting over money, and the quarterback, he get what I think he got around about what well somebody was saying 15 million or whatever. I don't know really what the price tag on that, but end of the day, you have some guys that get their contracts in the NBA and they stay their years in and they sign they deal pretty much be in the league. Because what was told to me, you're not really in the league until you sign that multi-year deal. You know,
Yeah, well, the money that agents make is based on the second contract for guys.
yeah,
And one of the things that you have to be careful about is, and this is a point that I wanted to touch on earlier, is it's never about your it's never about your first contract. It's a pro. It's about the ability to keep being able to get those deals.
mhm,
And it's important that if you want to have longevity in this, you want to keep climbing up.
oh, what happened there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but anyways, you want to keep making career decisions that are beneficial for your it's not necessarily about getting the most money. It's about chasing what's best for your long-term objectives, and that may mean, hey, um taking a shorter contract, and then setting yourself up for a longer contract down the road.
Right, right. Yeah, it's definitely so. Well, I mean, what would you advise uh now? What would you advise these high schoolers right now for is like dealing with the NIL stuff?
um I would say that my advice to them would be that all money isn't good money. Okay. um you could go you could have a situation to where they're paying you the most money, but looking at the grand scheme of things, you may not play. And if you don't play, it's going to be very hard for you to keep getting paid. And it can also screw up your professional paychecks as well.
Mm,
So, you don't want to go to a place that is going to offer you, a ton of money, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to play.
Right. And I'm thinking too, you definitely have to have some parents that when you don't have it, have the same attitude when you don't have it. Then when you get it, it's like, that thought process for some parents kind of go out the door.
Yeah, yeah, like, parents are looking at it, like, as a bottom line, and, when it comes to the recruitment, it's never a bottom line. It's a myriad of factors that that, again, you wanna set your child up for as much long-term success and as much sustained success as you can possibly have.
Right.
Again, the problem that I have is I just feel that, like, um, we're looking at this as something where it's just a paycheck, and there becomes a point in our adult life where, our main focus in a lot of our daily lives becomes trying to get as much money as we can. And I don't feel like that's the mentality that we should be passing along to kids because, again, like, all money is not good money.
What would you what would you say about flip the coin now and talk about the women's game when it comes to overseas and the WNBA. I mean, how you feel about that?
I'll tell you what, out of any professional league, whether it's the NFL, NBA, baseball, hockey, the WNBA is the most cutthroat league I've ever seen.
Wow.
You got number 1 picks getting cut 1.5 years in.
Mm,
Like, it's really like it's the depth of talent in the WNBA is so good, and there's the fewest roster spots out of any like, they only have 12 teams,
mm.
and,
That's very
I
hard.
mean, yeah, and there are so many good players that aren't in the WNBA. Like, it's just crazy how hard it is to make it. Like, it's absolutely nuts.
So it's basically it's best if you can't get on those 12 teams, with that's really like a low percentage of making a roster because of like you say the talent.
Yeah.
Best bet is to go overseas.
Right. For women, yeah, and I'm not too well versed in women's basketball, but I can say, like, I have a lot of respect for the WNBA because if you can play in the you've made it. Like, from a skill standpoint, from a basketball standpoint, if you're able to play in the WNBA at any juncture, you've had a very successful career.
Right. Right. So by being overseas, obviously, it's easier to put your money into investments while you in the pro league because you got an abundance of it. Even the people that's sitting the bench is making $1 million. Well, not take home, but they got a substantial amount of money to take care of themselves. But to say the people overseas, man, what would you suggest as people making that little bit of money like that? Not the ones that's making a lot of money, because even the ones that's making a lot of money, they pretty much got the NBA money, but they're not in the NBA. Uh, what type of investments you think they should, certain people, depends on the person, how to save their money and
Well,
what they need to do
my
with
my only, I'm not really one to give financial advice, other than don't spend money on stupid stuff that doesn't matter. But the first thing that I tell my guys to do, the guys that I rep, is
it.
get yourself a financial advisor. And I have one that represents me that, he's done pretty decently for me. But I say get a financial advisor. It doesn't matter, like, it ain't it ain't about how much you make, it's about how much you can keep. And anybody can make money, not everybody can keep it. So be one of those people that can keep it. And you just have to understand you want to live within your means. That's really the only two pieces of advice that I have for, guys that no matter if they're making 500 bucks a month or 5 million, like it's it's get yourself a financial advisor that's going to put you in positions to make smart decisions with what you make so you can keep some of it um and then live within your means. Do not play keeping up with the Joneses.
So if you was one of the people, one of the directors of the NCAA, and was not polluted with with the politics and everything like that, how would you structure the NIL?
Um, that's a great question. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier, which would be if we are going to pay people, we are going to do this professionally. Okay. Every school has an allotment of money. Okay. And it's not going to be the same for every school.
Yeah,
Some schools have the ability to raise $100 million. Other schools have the ability to raise 100,000. But we are going to have signed contracts. They're going to be transparent, and they're going to be, they're going to be, they're going to be uh, stipulations for both sides so that they can pay out and collect the money. Okay, it's not, we're not going to have this Wild West thing where, oh, hey, we'll give you $5 million if you come, and then, all of a sudden, you're missing checks 3 months into your commitment. No, like there there needs to be a uh, it just needs to be a professional arrangement. That's how I would structure it. Not every school is going to have an equal allotment, but we are going to make sure and do is make sure that the institutions pay what they say they're going to pay, and the players can collect what they agree to collect.
right. Okay. Um, yeah, I was just sitting here like kind of thinking, of the things you were saying. And I feel like if I would have had a lot of that advice that you was, I mean, I didn't do bad. I didn't do bad, but just the fact that I had to do a lot of stuff on my own, and a lot of stuff that I had to deal with on my own, I just watched other people. You know, um, that's how I kind of got through it. Um, like the homesickness and all that, I didn't even feel none of that because at the time I was going through some personal things here, which that was kind of like my release. It came right on time, you know. And then that what made me more hungry. Sometimes you gotta use, as they say, use something negative to make it positive, as fuel, because I could tell you right now, I had a 6 month ticket, and then when I had went through my situation with the first team, I could tell you every day I was looking at that 6 month ticket, and I was like, I'm not going home. I don't want to go home. You know what I mean? It,
Yeah,
it, it's and sometimes that's the self motivation. A lot of people don't have self motivation. It has to be manufactured for them, or it has to be sitting right there in front of them. And then once it goes away, you sitting there looking for it, but it's right there in your face. I mean, when I say it's in your face, wake up in the morning, look in the mirror. That's the motivation right there. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So, so with that being said, man, I really think this is definitely a good show, good information, good content. I think this will answer a lot of questions. that people have out there that's aspiring to go overseas. Um, hey man, I definitely appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, anytime I'll give you, I'll give you some more time if you have anything else you want to talk about. I'm a little bit tied up right now, as you can see, but
Hey, I'm working with you. You know, we right up on the hour, so you know, I know you got to get up out of here, man.
got you. Yeah, I
Appreciate you,
appreciate your time, and yeah, I look forward to doing this again.
sir. Yes, sir. But we have Mr. Juan Bernal. Yeah, and hey, I'm telling you, I can tell you right now, I've been answering a lot of questions. You know, I get a lot of questions about overseas and how it is, and you know, the fashion, the night. You know, I get these questions about the nightlife more than anything. The money side of things, and it's like you just got to, you got to kind of take the same attitude when you in your own country. You know what I mean? You're looking to make money, but you're looking to save. Um, but the main thing is you're basically getting paid for something you love to do, and you can't beat that. You know, but if you go over there and mess that up, man, I mean, ain't nothing I can say to you. But like I say, if we all just take this information and do right by it, it'll happen for you. Well, I can say right now, hey, I enjoyed the podcast. I hope you did too. Uh, like, sharing, and subscribe. Hit that notification button. And to all my whistlers out there, peace.